They act as a natural surveillance. And in that, we have one of the most important elements is street vendors, street activities. So if you have active streets, they contribute to the natural surveillance on the streets, and in a way that people can reach out for help if they need. Then we also look at public transport. Public transport is a very crucial element because it's the first thing that assures an access to your education, work in your city. So we look at all the different modes of transport. For example, in South Africa, we would look at bus stops, train stations, metros, wherever they are applicable, and also looking at taxis. Taxis, which are the primary mode of transport for a lot of people. Then we look at formal mode of security. In formal mode, we are looking at police station, the booth police, or any kind of police patrolling that goes around the city. We do not look at CCTV cameras because we believe that CCTV cameras can help after a crime has happened. It can help in deterring some of the crime issues, but yes, not not we do not give high rating to CCTV cameras because we believe that security plays a role, but the community policing is much better idea to improve the safety and security in our cities. Then we look at number of people using this space. We also look at how many women and children are part of that space. And then last but not the least, we also look at perception of feeling. Basically, we are looking at how do people feel in the space. They may the infrastructure may be very good, but they may not still feel safe. So looking at understanding that what are those elements. So this feeling parameter helps us to understand what exactly is the thing. How do they perceive this public space safe or not? So that's where we come in. So Safetipin is a technology platform which is using this safety audit methodology in its different application, mobile as well as web application. We use these tools to collect large scale data in our cities and specifically the data on safety, mobility, and accessibility. I will go into details about each of these apps now. The first app, which is a free app available on Apple Store as well as Google Play Store, is called My Safety Pin. My colleague or so
Sorry,
that you guys.
Sonali. I'm sorry to interrupt there. The network seem to phase us a bit. So, I mean, I would ask maybe that we try, let's turn on your video and see if it can improve so that we can continuously hear what you are saying, if that's fine with you.
So would you be? I'm sorry, I didn't get it. So shall I continue or you will be?
No, I asked you continue, but I was requesting if you can turn off your video and then we just hear your voice because the network sometimes we don't hear what you say.
Oh, okay. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are able to hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So the first app we have is My Safety Pin app, which is a free app available on Google and Apple Store. And anybody around the world can download this app. This app can be used by people to view safety information, to use it to audit public spaces, and other features. I'll be taking you through each of these features. The first one, like I said, you can download it and look at safety feature, like safety score of the city. In cities around the world, wherever we have data, you will be able to see a safety score indicating how safe is this area. You can also use this app to do a safety audit. As I explained, all the 9 parameters, they are rated on a scale of 0 to 3, 0 being the lowest and 3 being the highest. So you can rate these parameters according to the conditions at the place where you are standing. For example, you can look at lighting, whether it's working, it's bright. You can also look at pavement. Once you rate all the parameters, you can take photographs indicating the issue or indicating the good parts of the area, and write a comment if you want to comment about that space being good or bad, or anything else. If you want to give any additional information about that public space or public service, you can add the comment and click OK. Once you click it OK, it looks like a pin on the map, and that's how also our name came into being, safety pin. We do a safety audit and it looks like a pin on the map. That's how the safety pin is comes. We also have a feature called tracker, which is when if you are returning or when you want your friends or family to track you at certain time, you can place the request. You can send the request to a person and they can track you. So if they do not get any information within 10 minutes, they will also be able to so your information will be sent to the your friends and family as a location. In cities wherever we have data, we also provide safest route. This feature is basically overlaying safety information on Google direction routes. So if you have to go from point A to point B, Google will give you options based on time, and SafetyPin will overlay the information of safety perspective. So in a way, the route might be longer, but it would be safer for a pedestrian to take. So that's the safest route about. Currently in India, we also provide a feature called Find Support. A Find Support feature basically has all the verified resources of government which provides help in case of emergency for women. For example, in India, we have information on nearest police station, nearest women police station, one-stop crisis center, um, legal care centers, and also shelter homes. So this information helps women to just with one click access it. And these resources are provided in partnership with the local government. At the end of this presentation, I might share the PPT, share the video on showing you the Find Support feature. That was our free app, crowdsourced data collection. We also have two different tools to collect specific information on cities. The first one we have is Safety Pin Night, where we mount a phone on the windshield of a car, and as the car moves, it takes photographs. We realized that in the crowdsourced data, it was the data was coming as patchy, and we wanted to collect a uniform level of data in the cities. For that, what we did was we collect these images. Once these images are uploaded to SafetyPin server, we look at each of these images and identify the issues. Along with rating the parameters, we also identify the potential problem, the exact identify the issues that are causing the issue. For example, the pavement is broken, the pavement do not have ramps, or whether it is obstructed. So these issues are indicated, and then we share it with the government so that they know which area needs what kind of intervention. The third app that we have called SafetyPin Site. Now this app is a customizable web app in which we particularly use it to assess a particular public space or site. For example, in South Africa project, what we are doing is we use this app to audit taxi ranks. We looked at facilities, sitting infrastructure. We look at accessibility elements, the shelter home. We also spoke to few women and other commuters and the taxi rank to understand what is their issue. So this helps us in getting the detailed assessment of any public space. As we go further, at the end of my presentation, I will be presenting Durban study and showing you how we have used all these three apps. But as of now, I'm just giving you a brief snapshot of what these apps are capable of. Having said that, all these different tools that we have, we also acknowledge that there is a huge digital divide in terms of digital literacy as well as digital accessibility. Like many women in India and other developing countries do not have access to phones. Now, in that sense, how do we also include their voices? For that, we always partner with local civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations to mobilize women, talk to them, have focus group discussion, have surveys with them, and engage with them to understand what are their issues. And often, what we do is we support them getting phones and also going around with them to audit their communities. Now, you might wonder what are these parameters going to, what the data on these parameters going to help or impact. So these parameters, in addition to improve this infrastructure, improve and upgrade the infrastructure, in this sense, it impacts your walkability, mobility, and also improve the overall sense of safety in the city, thereby increasing the access to public spaces, opportunities, and resources for women. So far, we have data in about 70 cities around the world, and as you can see, mostly in the developing countries. But it has been in South Africa. We have some data in Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town. Now, going forward, I will talk about how this data have been used by different departments and who all can use this data. Since the safety pin data is geotagged, it is backed by evidence like images and the comments from the users. In this sense, it is very useful for all the urban stakeholders from municipal level to the department level like safer cities unit. So the municipal level can always use it to integrate it with other spatial layers, and police, transport department, safer cities unit, they can use it to integrate with different databases, improving the improving their services like patrolling, route planning, or the transport network planning, and initiatives for inclusive and safe cities. These are some of the cities where we have worked with different city governments and how we have worked on improving not just infrastructure but also improving areas at the community level. We Some of the examples from those use cases are this is from Delhi, where in 2016 we mapped around 4,000 kilometer of road length in Delhi, and it was identified that there were about 7,000, more than 7,000 dark spots. These are the spots where there were no lighting, there were no street lights, there were no source of light from nearby houses or vendors, anything. These were mostly roads which were pitch dark. And so what we did was we shared this data, all these points and all these images to the municipal department. And in Delhi, there were about more than 15 different departments that were taking care, 15 different road owning agencies that were taking care of lighting. And they went around, they did their own surveys, and they worked around it, like improving the areas in the sense that they installed new street lights, repaired the one that was not working, and then they came back to us in 2019 saying that do a second round of study so that they can see the chain, they can map the chain, and you can clearly see how much has what a great chain it has been. The dark spots have reduced by 60% in 2019. And this is from one of the streets in Delhi where this intervention was done. This is an example from Cambodia where the data was used to identify streets in terms of improving the overall infrastructure. And as is the case in most of Southeast Asian cities, that their nightlife, the street life is very active. So on the pavement, they designated spaces for vendors. Along with that, they also provided sitting space for the commuters, and the street lights you can see clearly were at two different levels, at a pedestrian scale level as well as at vehicular level. So in a way to provide an active street. In Bogota, the mayor, the government, the local government actually wanted to encourage more women to use cycle tracks. And in the process of that, they used safety pin data to identify where are the points to make new bike stops, the CCTV cameras, and also to identify the dark areas, areas which were not active or inactive areas around the cycle track. And they identified few areas like one of this area in Suba community from Bogota, where the community was involved and community was there were multiple discussions by the local government and between the local government and the community to understand how can we improve this space or how can we activate this space. And the community came up with an idea that let's make it as a multi functional space where people can just come together to just play around or just watch movies. And you can see this effect of citizens proposal. And since it was a and it became such a good change, example how community can come together and work on this. Now coming to Durban, sharing here the partnership that we have with EThekwini Municipality, Safetipin and Soul City Institute. Soul City Institute is based in Johannesburg. It's an we the Safetipin is partnered with Soul City and provide supported by Humanity Foundation for this project, in which we are collaborating with Safer Cities Unit. And this project was launched during AFUS in 2019. And the focus of this project was to mainstream women's safety into city safety strategy. And we use safety pin different tools, as well as we also customize one of the tool to assess taxi ranks in the city. This is a photo from November 2019 where Safety team trained these community members from Kwama, Shukon, and Geji. These were the members of Gohudamini Foundation and Ethimbini Crisis Center. They have been really instrumental in collecting data through our apps and giving voices, identifying hotspots in the communities. Sharing the snapshot of how much the data that was collected, we covered around 800 kilometers of the road length. On this map, you can see these highlighted in the violet color. These were the wards that were covered. 79 wards were covered, and we generated around more than 7,500 audits. Indeed, these were the geotagged audits with images, with comments, and in addition to this, we also did audits in 6 taxi ranks and community levels at 4 different communities: Wama, Shukon, and Geji, Phoenix, Hillcrest. So in these areas, some of these issues were identified, like how there were no street lights around sports field, and that were causing a lot of problems for people who were using it to even just cross it during the evening or after their children were playing, and how some of these routes were unsafe for pedestrians during certain times. At taxi rank and bus stops, we identified issues related to infrastructure, related to facilities like sitting space, shelters, just the basic facilities of public toilets. And we also looked at bus stops where how the bus stops were. Uh, at some places, the bus stop was just a signage, no space to sit or wait. So these were the different kind of issues that were identified. We also spoke to a lot of people, commuters, understanding their issues related to using taxis. They indicated how, in absence of how these taxi associations, like there were very limited security at taxi ranks, which made them feel unsafe. Coming to the safety pin data outputs, all the data that has been collected at in Durban in our cities, what we do is we do it at a different formats like Excel file, treat images, comment from users, layers, so that the stakeholders can use it. And this is the data that is mostly in quantitative as well as qualitative data. So you can easily integrate it any platform like Google Maps. Here you can see it in Google Maps where each of these points can be clicked and you can see all the data along with the images, comments, and the image link. So this is how we have been sharing the data with the governments, with the urban stakeholders, and working with them in making our cities safer and inclusive. Before I open the floor for questions and answers, I'll play a very small video on Find Support feature of my Safetipin app. Are you able to see this new screen, this YouTube video?
No, not yet, Sonali.
Okay. How about now?
Oh, okay, I think it's coming. You can play it again.
Okay.
All right.
There's no sound here.
Yeah, there's a tricky to get to the sound. You know, when you click share, there is a button that you must activate. It says share the sound of a computer, of your computer, so that you can have the sound.
That's all right. The sound is not important.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So now, what I would like us to do is that we will take just few questions on the basics we have given, but I request you to prepare to share the actual findings of the Debian audit. so that we see what were the findings and then the actions. I think that's about 5 slides of your presentation. So we can take few questions now on the basis that we have outlined. But in so long, get ready to share now. What did you find in Wandengezi and as well as Guamashintuzuma area, and what are the recommended actions from the
Oh,
findings of the audit? Colleagues, can I take some of your questions on the introductory presentation made by Sonali? Just by show of hands. Yes, Sandile, go ahead.
Sonali, thank you so much for this presentation. It's really powerful tool. A quick question on the data part. Are you collecting the data and putting it on a server, on a particular server? That's one question. Is it a centralized server? Secondly, how accessible is the data for the various municipalities that you work with or various entities that you work with?
Let's take about 2 more before you provide any feedback on that, Sonali. Any other questions or comment? All right, Sonali, you can answer that question on that was asked by Sandile, and then after that you will then go to the outcomes of the Debian safety audit.
sure. Um, yes, all the audits, all the data comes to Safetipin server, and right now you can just use my Safetipin app to view the data that we have collected. For using all this data in a raw format, the formats that I shared with you, we share it with the city government and we work with them in helping them in integrating with their databases, be it APIs, be it through different layers, and that we provide as part of the project. Hope this answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does, Sonali, because I know the reason why Sonali asked that is because we would like to see how we integrate this data to the already existing platform that we use to look at safety in different wards of the municipality. So if we superlay this data on that was done, then it helps us, even if it's not for all the wards, but for the wards that were covered. So it is now an added data that can help us see more other aspect that we may not have covered on other data that we have. So Sandile, I think you are covered on that. Dr. Mbata, are you correct? Is that correct?
I am covered, Musa, but I had another question if there's still space.
Okay, we can take it. So now you can put on your outcome presentation now.
So
Sure.
Go ahead, Sandile.
Yeah, so the first question, it's thank you so much for that, Musa. It's exactly that, because even if it's a sampled it was a sampled data, what we can then start doing is mapping out that data and hopefully use machine learning to see how we can see sort of the similar areas, if those areas that are being picked up as dangerous or whatever the case might be, either seem to have less lighting or whatever features they have, we can then try and duplicate that. But the second question was on the reporting. Does the tool can the tool be linked to an emergency call where you are able to press on the tool and it reports if there's any issues that you have, or to report to the police and so forth? I'm really sorry if you already mentioned it on the presentation and I missed it.
So now are we able to use the tools as panic buttons?
No, we do not provide. The My Safetipin app is not a panic or emergency app, but we do provide verified numbers that you can reach out in case you need help. For example, you can, with one click, you can know the numbers of shelter home that may provide you help. We believe that as a private organization, we cannot assure that a help would reach. So that's why we do not use this app as a panic button or emergency app. We believe the police is best suited for that kind of police or government they are better suited for this kind of facility because they will be responsive.
All right. So let's take, there are two more hands. And then Sonali, I think you can load your presentation. There was another hand that was up, and then now Sandy the Maslava.
No, my question might have been asked, because I didn't listen maybe correctly. So if for example we are interested in doing this audit and using the app, do we have to use it within your environment, or we are able to provide our own environment to host it? Thus, we can get the data and everything from it. So are you guys saying you give access to your app that is available in your environment globally, or I can be able to have my own snap of the same app existing in my cloud so I can get my information and have a centralized targeted collection that I want to do?
All right, let's take Brian.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. My question is, okay, I am Brian Mukhanso from the Risk Management Unit within the CT. I just want to find out, particularly with the usage of this app using Google Apps, considering the fact that we are in the 4IR and the perpetrators use this, advanced technologies, how secure is the app, based on what you presented, the fact that we can use Google Apps, can it not be hacked? I'm asking this on the background that even like TransUnion right now, it has been hacked. Will that not give access to perpetrators? How secure is the app? Thank you.
Yeah, I think the answer to that, Brian, is that it is safe as much as you think it is. In a lighter note, because we know that the cyber criminals, I mean, are not people who are not trained. These are highly trained people on ICT, and most of them, they would have undergone a cyber security on ICT infrastructure, and that's why they venture out successfully on hacking. But to some degree, as far as I know, the app is well protected by various cyber security protocols. But of course, we can agree it can be hacked. Like you are saying, that I mean, a major infrastructure could be hacked, so it can equally be hacked. But Sonali may also provide others. Okay, Sonali, can I give it to you? And after that, let's do your outcomes now, and then we can further our discussion so that we are done. And if you can take about 15 minutes maximum for the outcome report, and then we leave the rest for the discussion. But you can attempt the questions then.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So, as I was talking about how, let me just quickly answer the question that you that were, so one, yes, security, the app is secure. We do not reveal any private information of our users, and we do not share it with anybody outside. These are confidential and optional. So users are clearly aware of what information they are giving to us. The second question, for all, if you can, anybody can use the app to do a safety audit. And if you would like to use the other two tools that I mentioned in my presentation, you can get in touch with us with regarding the tools that Safetipin Night and Safetipin Side. We can work with you because those tools needs to be worked upon, like what is the project scope, how to collect the data, and once we work with you, we can share the analyzed data with you. So yeah, that's the project specific. But my Safetipin app is free to use. You can just simply download the app and do it for safety audits. And now, if can I share the outputs of the safety audits?
Yeah, yes. Go ahead.
Please let me know once you're able to see my screen.
Yes, you can go ahead and speak to the outcomes. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a reminder. So this was the data that was collected. 79 wards covered, more than 7,500 safety audits. Overall, if you can see in terms of parameters, most of the parameters were rated red, which were like uh, they were rated lower, and the only two parameters that were rated slightly better were lighting and walk path. But now, as we can go further, I'll tell you how what all needs to be done in those sense. And in social environment, all the people and gender usage, it goes down during the night hours. In lighting, we identified about spaces 1300 audits, like with no street lights. We identified spaces with non-functional street lights, indicating what needs to be done. For walk path, we identified places where there is no pavement, whether there is where it was broken.
Uh,
Yes. We also identified different civic issues like open garbage dumping, potholes, and in the Kwanzangezi areas, like we all, these audits were also done by community members, identified what were the major health and hygiene issues. In terms of visibility, like I said, visibility is about how active is the street. So poor visibility was mostly, in places where visibility was rated low, it was mostly due to high boundary
auntie,
walls.
yeah, auntie, how much are they?
Sorry, I mean, is it Fidel's who's speaking? Please, let's switch off your mic, please. Go ahead, Sonali.
Yeah. So one of the very active areas that is Muse from Music Bridge in Durban Warwick Junction. It is much active spaces with a lot of street vendors, but there's a need for regulated street vendors, and have a designated space for vendors. The municipality needs to, have a partnership with the business forum, like having designated spaces for vendors, ensuring regular police patrolling, working with Metropolis on that, and also formalize community safety forums so that they can provide these spaces much safer. In public transport, as I mentioned, the different infrastructure was assessed. In taxi ranks, these were the six taxi ranks that were audited, and major infrastructure issues were related to this not having any waiting areas, no shelter, no public toilet. Most of these taxi ranks were active from 4 a.m. in the morning to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And for commuters who were using at early in the morning, they were having no street lights was a big problem. Some of the recommendations, some of the immediate, like the short-term interventions, are focused on upgrading the civic infrastructure and also providing, proper shelter, clear signage for the nearest train station, bus stops. Also, providing separate bays for taxi, and in the shelters, places where people can wait, they need sitting infrastructure, they need proper ramps, and also the help desk and helpline for the security needs to be put up on board. And one of the issues that were highlighted at taxi ranks were in terms of security was that the security personnel were not wearing uniform. So women commuters were not aware of whom to reach out for help. So for that, the help desk and helplines are very important. The other issues that were highlighted was how the wash bays for taxi need to be outside the central business district area of Durban, and the taxi drivers and the taxi staff can be incentivized in a way to ensure that these taxi ranks are safe and safer for commuters. We can also focus on these are some of the long term solutions where a municipality can work with taxi rank association to build capacity to have gender sensitization training for taxi drivers. In terms of safety and security, like I mentioned, we were mapping formal security, but we, with the help of the volunteers, we also identified the areas which were considered as unsafe within the community. This is from Pondengeri Sports Field. Taxi ranks, like I mentioned, mostly the issues were related to uniform, and they were not able to reach out to people whom they can, and there were no numbers that were identified. These are some of the suggestions. So last month, so earlier this month, actually in March, there was a committee, steering committee meeting that was hosted by Safer Cities Unit of EThekwini Municipality. In that, all the stakeholders, all the different stakeholders, including organizations like Gugudamini Foundation, Etimbini Crisis Center, National Taxi Association, and the different representatives of EThekwini municipality were part of it, and they came up with some of the major suggestions like awareness campaigns for educating citizens about open dumping, health, and which these campaigns should also focus on behavior change intervention. One of the other important activity that was highlighted was how the municipality can work with business forums to regulate street vendors, and also with National Taxi Association for using designated spaces for washing. The other issues were related to solid waste management, and at community level, one of the major thing that was talked about was how the municipality can work with safety champion in a way that they will be a bridge or a platform between the community and the government, so that they can communicate, they can have these awareness campaigns more effectively. And last but not the least, Metropolis, the unsafe routes that have been identified by the community, if the Metropolis can improve their surveillance around those areas. So yes, so these were the some of the suggestions from the workshop and the.
Yes, Sonale, is this the last slide of the outcomes?
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Let's give Sonali a big round of applause, please. You know how to do it, am I right? So thank you very much, Sonali. To highlight this. Of course, you are not providing all details and all recommendations. It's upon us to maybe see the actual report, and maybe we can share it as well, so that we can see what are the things that are recommended. I think with that, before I allow you the 18 minutes we have to discuss have your opinion and have your comment. I don't know, Kola, do you want to now take the second exercise, or prior to that, Zama will give us a summary of the last exercise?
I've posted the voting link for the next exercise, and I'll share the code just now.
Okay, all right. So Zama, how did we eventually do the voting on the two questions you asked at the beginning of the brown bag?
Okay, I see Bola is sharing her screen. I think a little bit of a change on the first question. How would you describe your feelings in relation to safety when you are out at night in your neighborhood? 4 people voted that they are uncomfortable, and 4 people voted that they are frightened. Other 4 said it is acceptable, and only 1 said they're comfortable, and that is out of 13 votes.
Okay.
And ranking the factors that are important in enhancing the safety feeling. People have voted, 17 people voted, and the first one is good lighting. So things have changed a little bit. Good lighting is number 1. Number 2 is the presence of other people. Number 3 is the visibility of private security. Number 4 is good infrastructure, the roads and the pavements. And then lastly, at number 5 is the police visibility.
All right. So this calls for interesting reflection, but not now, of course. So now we have heard all that Sonali has given us on the safety audit of EThekwini, especially in Wandengezi and in other areas in Kwamash and Tuzuma and Inanda, done by the colleagues as we know. Now we ask you that based on the recommendations that are put forward, which of the recommendations would you say must be prioritized for immediate implementation? So it's a voting exercise again. So we want you to have your say. And of course, this is not all the recommendation, but we have taken some of the recommendation. So let's see how would you prioritize if you were somebody living in EThekwini, whether as government or public servant or as a civil society. What would you start with? Of course, it doesn't mean that the one that is put as a start, I mean, we'll do it in a linear fashion. We do one until we are done, we do the next. No, but which one would you put forward? So I invite you to make this a voting. It's very important that we do. We are almost about 25. So let's try again, maybe to reach about all of us in essence. I think we can. Let's try and see so that we can move quickly and then allow you for discussion for the balance of the time, which is 15 minutes. Right, let's push at least to about 20. I mean, I don't also see why we couldn't all of us do it. 22 at least. I mean, we can. Maybe except Sonali. Right. All right. Kola, do you wanna say something and then maybe move to your second? How many questions do you have? 2 or 3?
It's just to the second
2.
one. Yeah, the second question which I'm gonna move on to is it's an open-ended question, just basically on what you think you can do, whether it's in your personal capacity or at an organizational level, to actually contribute in implementing some of these recommendations. But before I move on, I'm sure you can all see the screen. I think the top 2 recommendations, the first one is improving public spaces to enhance usage by the public. And Sonali had mentioned that in her presentation, that if you promote multiple uses, then there's more people out and then people feel safer. So I think that's the top one. And then the second one is promoting community awareness programs that encourage community-led security interventions. And I think Dr. Mbata had alluded to the fact that nobody had actually prioritized the option of the police and so on, which is quite interesting that nobody thinks that that's the most important thing. I'm going to move on to the next slide where you can just then share what you think you can do.
Fantastic. And this again, this is an interesting reflection because you also saw from Zama's side the activity we did at the beginning. So now, all right. I mean, police. I think came as I think the last one, Zama, wasn't it? Number 5 on the prioritize on what do we need to do or what makes people feel safe. Number 1 was the lighting. Number 2, other people in spaces or in public places.
Yes.
Yeah. So now and again. Sure. All right. So now this is a very important question, colleagues, because we are not now saying what do you think government must do, but we are saying what is it that you personally, in your individual capacity, of course, you may also link it to the organization where you come from, maybe the department or the unit or the NGO. What is it that you think you can contribute toward the implementation of these recommendations? Let's get some input there. What is it that you are prepared to part with so that you make this possible? I do know there are colleagues from Pretoria, so they will come on a policy side, I suppose, or other means. Nomkita, for example, will say something around that. But there are those that are located here in Durban. We may have colleagues from Botswana and colleagues from DRC, especially city of Bukavu. So they may also say what is it that we could take forward. What is it that they're prepared to do in even if you are not in Durban per se, but in your own community. If you reflect on what are the findings of the Audit in EThekwini, there are really some similarities of the things that you could find equally in your own community, even if you don't live in EThekwini per se. All right, I think while we get that, colleagues, let's open up for questions and input in this regard. And we'll keep this caller on visible to us like this. That's fine. Let's take some of your input, colleagues. Mr. Pritas, I would like to start with you because your name starts with A, so you are number one there in an alphabetical order. Will that be fine?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So just a comment to start off with. I think it was a very useful presentation, and I was quite amazed by some of the findings that have come out specifically for Durban. I think Sandile asked the right questions, because we've got to look at how we get access to this data, how we integrate it with other data, and how we start to extract some strategic interventions and direction that comes out of that integration of the data, and how we start to feed that, most importantly, into decision-making processes. So all of this work and the ability through this app to actually massify this work, etc., I think is very exciting, and I really like that. But perhaps a specific question. I was trying to understand, and maybe in the context of that comment that I just made, what sort of benefits has Safetipin been able to see by having multiple sets of geographic data across different cities? Are we able to see anything that is important for implementation? And to what extent, having these multiple sets of data, are we able to look at, what is the sort of cross-cutting value add, and how do we facilitate that process of identifying that cross-cutting value add, especially around successful implementation? So are we looking at the data also in a linear direction? Are we starting to see where perceptions are improving, or the situation is improving? And what are those things that are improving those situations? And how do we transfer some of those lessons across to other cities? Thank you very much, Bong Musa.
Thank you very much for that, Adrian. Let's take Chanel.
Thank you. From my side, I just have a comment regarding the app. I think it has a lot of potential, but the accuracy of the data is quite important. So I've been testing it with a few friends right now. But what I've noted is that when we're doing the live tracking, it does adjust to our South African standard time. However, when you stop the tracking and get notifications, it actually goes to UTC time, which is actually 2 hours. It's a 2-hour delay. So I think from that perspective, that needs to be actually looked at on the app, because notifications are coming at UTC time, but live tracking is SAST times. So that's just my comment from my side. And I can see on the app that we can't change that.
Thank you very much. I think it's always good to hear also from the people who are using the app. So Nali, can we? I think we take your channel as a comment that we need to see how we address it. And so Nali, let's try to provide or shed some light on the question that was put forward by Adrian.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Chanel, for highlighting that point. We have listed it, and we will check with our tech team on that. And now to the question from Adrian. Um, One of the things that we believe that would be helpful and that has been helpful in other cities is periodic data collection. The cities are dynamic. The cities have a way of changing over time. So we believe that if you collect this level of data, the large scale data, level of data with a simple digital tool periodically, say once in 2 years, you will be able to see the change. Like we have seen in Delhi, in Bogota, we were able to map what the changes were done in terms of how you, when you improve these area, the city, like how there was change in the safety score. We were able to map that because since the data is geotagged, it in a way act like you are collecting a baseline data as well as the end line data. So yes, so first and foremost, the strategy for to go towards that is if all the cities acknowledge that there is a need to audit the city at a periodic level, and this is a very easy way to audit. Like it's very cost cutting also. Like you mentioned, it's a very easy tool. Once you have this data, it's very handy to use. It is geotagged, it is backed by evidences. All the data that is coming to you has a image so that you can clearly see what exactly is the issue, where to go, and what needs to be done. So I feel that way the data would be, I mean, that way the data has been helpful.
Okay, the other part that Adrian asked as well is that there are some prerequisites that must be in place for taking forward the action. For example, in the case of Bogota, the lead was coming from the mayor's office in ensuring that those outcomes of the audit that needed action were action, but action in a way that does not necessarily put government as the sole implementation or sole implementer of change, but with a community kind of, I mean, I would say a hybrid approach of community, bottom up, top down, and meeting together, an all offsite approach, so that equally the communities take ownership of the change that they have already put forward or identify as required by the audit. That was, I mean, among other two things that is important, is that the leadership must come from the top, but equally the communities must be equally be empowered to feel that they are equal partners, and the communities do not necessarily need to have money to contribute to the changes, but even if you contribute time, you contribute ideas on how it could be done better, and then that is equally, even if you volunteer and say, for example, Adrian, in some cases they volunteer that in the bike route you may have particular stations where you can have some people selling particular products or services along the route. That's equally fine. In some cases, others volunteer that they will do public space activation. So, and again, while I'm there, I'm also reminded that we may also need to review the policy as well. What are the policies that allows people to do that? For example, if say I'm in Adrian and Bomusa want to do kickboxing in a particular space, and then we then promote that, we get support, and then people come, and then we now activate the space. Eventually, it becomes known that every Wednesday, Aden and Bomusa are doing kickboxing in this sport. Every Thursday, Sandile Mbata and Sandile Matlaba are doing reading, and they are working together with PRC and libraries. Every Friday, there is an open Debian. We don't cook it at homes. You go and eat out from the informal traders somewhere in Warwick Avenue this week or this month. Next month, you are in Mlazi. Third month, you are in Wandengezi. And then we rotate like that. So it does need that leadership, but again, it must be a consummate, a kind of a reciprocal action from the community side. Then the part that is interesting, Adrian and colleagues, is how you bring social partners and public sector in this space to join the community in brainstorming, what we call it, design thinking of what will be the solutions beyond what will have been the recommendations from the audit itself. Over to you, Dr. Mbata.
Thanks, Mamusa and colleagues, and I think a lot of really interesting issues have been raised. But I wanted to talk to one recommendation, and we don't have the recommendation slides, but I hope I won't get it wrong. But it's the one that relates to informal traders and the regulatory issues. I think it's a bit problematic because we focus more on enforcement, enforcing certain bylaws around the use of space, and that's what you're also talking to. But that, of course, extends to the use of parks, to the use of public open spaces. So there's two things for me that needs to change: is how we articulate the language in which we refer to public spaces. It's not municipal space. There's no municipal park. There's no municipal halls. These are all public halls. So once we start using that language that purports that we as a municipality own certain spaces, it creates problems. It detaches communities from those spaces, and those spaces remain deserted. Part of what I would hope that we start doing is creating social compacts. Social compacts on the use of space, social compacts on the adoption of certain public spaces. And I'm still pretty much aggrieved on some of my experiences as a citizen, not as a city person, as a citizen, in how we've been treated in just trying to use a park that is already has a whole lot of social ills, right? It's filled with debt. There's multiple condoms everywhere, and there's open defecation happening in that space. There's prostitution happening in that space. So we try to use it almost immediately when we try to use it, and there's kids, there's jumping castles, and it's a community. Parks sends the police, the public order police to close down whatever we're doing. And for me, that's mind-boggling that a city like ours does that to a community that tries to take over.
I did not do that, Sandile, because you were saying that. So it's not me. So, okay, Tutambata, are you still with us? Okay. Now, colleagues, we have reached the end of our session. I think there's a time that we need to end. Or am I correct? 1:30.
Yes, that's correct.
Dr. Mbata, you were still pursuing a point, please. I mean, and I did not touch anything to sabotage your line of thinking. So, okay. Is there any of our colleagues who would like to make any comment? Sandile, you were just cut there a bit, brother, and I didn't do anything. So I wasn't irritated by the points you were raising. So maybe you may finish that.
No, it was me. I think we're again suffering service delivery issues. I don't have electricity, so my things switched off. So apologies. But I was sort of lamenting. Of course, part of it is venting on how, as a municipality, we take over certain spaces, but we haven't created avenues that allow the public to take over certain spaces, but within a controlled manner. Because we're talking about informal traders, but when you walk around the suburbs, you find that the policing forum, the private security companies, they put these little houses right on the pavement, so you cannot jog there, you cannot go past there. We haven't gotten control over that and how people take over certain public spaces, and people in this country still park on the pavement, as an example, and it's fine. No one gets a ticket for doing that, on parking on the walkway. So, but we still need some level of enforcement, but we need to create much better social compacts and partnership with communities, rather than saying we want to enforce certain bylaws, because those bylaws don't work. They don't create safety, they don't create ownership. They create a burden for municipalities to manage those spaces, rather than saying to communities, you manage these spaces, they are your spaces. Because if I have a public park that I can't use for anything I want to use it for, that is for the public benefit, then it means it's not my park, it's a municipal park, because the municipality can get someone to remove me from there. But that modality needs to change. And I think the sooner we change that modality and we create a model for social compacts, then those social compacts then start to take effect. And it has to be inclusive. Of course, it's not just a social compact to say people must take over certain spaces and use them, but it must be clear on inclusivity, that it doesn't become exclusive spaces where certain either wealthy families or wealthy people, or so more powerful people in the communities, take over spaces and use it for themselves. But there must be clear guidelines in terms of how those social compacts are designed. Unless we move to that, then we won't deal with issues. Thanks, Bomusa.
I think thank you very much. There are some examples. We do have a draft that we prepared after the revitalization of Bulwa Park, and we're looking exactly at what you are talking about. And there were things that we refused as the municipality. I mean, I remember one session when we were told that we must fence the park, and then we told the residents that we are not going to fence the park. And then also they talk about removing unwanted people. They said no, there are no unwanted people. We just need to support people for what and see them for what they are. In fact, they are equal partners in the help of improving our public spaces. I think what it raises, Sunday and colleagues, we may need to go back to another session that we need to host with EThekwini and City of Johannesburg. Ayanda Roach is not here today. If you see her somewhere, Nomkita, tell her that we may need to look at that, how that work has been done in North Park in Johannesburg. I'm not saying it's a perfect example, but there are some lessons that we could learn, and also from other cities, including Nairobi, in the work they have done in placemaking, and then we may bring as well Ethan Kent, the son of Kent, there for placemaking X, and from a placemaking in US to also share some of the lessons. I think with that, Sonale, I would like to give you closing remarks and apologize to colleagues that we took long. I hope you enjoyed this session, and we'll prepare the effective note that we could share with you post. Sonali, any closing remarks on your side?
No, thank you, Gongamasa. It has been a pleasure to be here and talking to all of you. And we look forward with working with you on this project. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll continue engaging, and of course, on the implementation side, the services colleague will take a lead, but all of us, and in a true all of society approach, we shall achieve the change. And that's why Ola asked that question at the end: what is it that you are prepared to do to contribute toward the change that we all identified as necessary? Adele, do you want to say something as closing for us? Adele? All right. So anybody who would like to close for us, you can take that opportunity and close. Close one. All right. Okay, colleagues, thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend, and we shall meet again and carry on doing the good work. Be kind to yourself, to your family, to your neighbors. We are going through a lot, but future is better. Tomorrow will be a better day than today. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.